because let's be honest, it's not easy. You know, you can go to university, you can go to schools, you can read books, you can watch videos. It's there's a lot of content in the world, right? And it's hard to trust these days. And so, you know, again, all systems are flawed, but the first thing you got to do is step up and step in and keep it real and get your head around the fact that if I want to grow, I want to prosper, I want to live and be better than I am currently, I need to do something about it. And that's why here in the States, right, there's an expression, you know, pull yourself up by the bootstraps. That's not fair, right? Because some people are very much under-resourced. Some people are not as privileged and blessed with the monetary availability, et cetera, right? So we do have to help each other out, right? Back to social enterprise and B Corps and helping under-resourced. So there's always that reality. But yeah, the driver is what has, is, and will happen in the world. And, you know, not to overstate my part, but I just believe I've been fortunate and blessed enough to be in a situation where I can help. Certainly, as I said earlier, I'm a humanitarian capitalist, so there's an economic model here for sure. But I think you know, we can all use a helping hand.
If you're one of those leaders, one of those entrepreneurs who has ever found themselves getting frustrated with systems and process, then you need to listen to this episode, because we'll be talking about the role of business operations systems, how to fit it in with your leadership, how to use them the right way to give your team the best chance for success. Welcome back to another episode of Leading with Integrity. And this week, I'm joined by very special guest, Scott Abbott. He's a specialist in creating, building, and coaching prosperous, successful companies, leadership, and growth. He has 30 plus years of skills, experience, and expertise doing what he does, launching, operating, buying, and selling successful companies. And so in this conversation, we'll be hearing about Scott's journey from the .com era to his current role as founder and CEO of bos-up Coaching Solutions and Academy. We'll talk about the parallels between that .com boom and the current AI landscape, the importance of human connection, the need for adequate and effective systems in leadership and in business, and some of the challenges that leaders face today, the significance of adaptability, the role of technology in the future for leaders, for businesses, for humanity. And there's some great insights as well from his extensive coaching experience, having completed over 10,000 coaching sessions by this point. He's got some really interesting insights and experiences to share with us on leadership, on business, technology, humanity. He's also the best-selling author of 4 books, which we'll be hearing a bit about today, particularly Bos-Up, which we will get a sneak preview of later on. And as I say every week now, do stick around to the end or check those show notes for links to Scott's website, learn more about him, connect with him on LinkedIn, perhaps get a copy of one of those books.
Welcome to the Leading with Integrity podcast. Leadership talk for the modern manager. With your host, David Hatch.
Scott, welcome to Leading with Integrity. It's lovely to have you on the show today.
Good morning, David, or good afternoon where you're at. Thanks for having me. Good to see you.
Likewise. Yeah, it's going to be a good conversation, this one, I'm sure. And to kick that off, over to you for a little bit. Tell us your career story so far. What do you do today? Why do you do it? How did you get there?
Yeah, so today I am, I guess, officially the founder and CEO of the bos-up Coaching Solution and Academy. We've got, as part of the solution, a portfolio of assets, resources, guidebooks, materials that help coaches, specifically independent consultants and executive business leadership coaches, help their clients learn, implement, and benefit from a tailored business operating system, along with their coaching and the use of AI in our technology at Technology Partnership with 90. But before that, I spent 30 years in systems implementation tech, big companies like IBM, Oracle, Microsoft. I had my own couple of tech firms back in I started my first one in the dot-com era back in 95. Helped a little company by the name of IBM create a whole new internet business. So I've been in the systems, technology, consulting, coaching space for most of my career. And now my passion is to help others learn and benefit from a great way to build, run, and scale their company. And then my free time, I write books. I just came out with my fourth book, Boss-Up Moments, which is really around helping all humans with leadership, learning, and development. It complements the main Boss-Up book, which is really more the strategy and the mechanics, the engineering to build, run, and scale. And Moments is more around, let's call it the soft tissue, emotional intelligence, mindfulness, how to overcome conflict and embrace boundaries. So that's my story. I grew up overseas, as I said before we got on the mic. Lived about 8 years in London, 3 in Spain, Paris. So I'm a footballer by the European standards, not the Americans, although I do like American football. And yeah, man, that's about it for me.
Okay, cool. So, I mean, it sounds like a very interesting career, particularly like the being around the sort of the dot-com bubble. I mean, what was that like when it eventually burst?
Well, it was my first book, Level Up to Pro, which I try to help young adults enter the workforce with career-centric life skills. I probably talk more about it than ever. A little bit of a journaling out loud kind of a vibe. It was a ride, man. As Warren Buffett, the famed investor, said, even turkeys can fly in tornadoes. And I look back, and it's a big inspiration for why I do what I do. What I didn't know was way more than what I should have known. Raised a bunch of money, raised 15 million in total, bought companies, did kooky partnerships with companies in Mexico City. So I was in Mexico City for half the time, and the country of Mexico doing things I look back and say, huh? So it was cool though, right? You learn from failures, mistakes, and doing things you shouldn't have done, probably more than you do from things that you should be doing. But it was a good experience, and I think it's also helped me a lot with AI today. I mean, we're fully embracing AI, the good and the bad, the pluses and the minuses. So that's been helpful, I think. But yeah, it was a ride, man. And looking back, I'm glad we did it, but I would have done a lot of things differently now that I know what I know.
Absolutely. It's interesting that you drew that parallel, because I was going to ask, do you see any similarities between sort of the dot-com era and I guess we're the era of AI now, aren't we? But you sort of answered that already.
I wouldn't say it's full on deja vu. But I think some people have some, I in our coaching solution, we talk about the essential concepts, tools, and disciplines and the 9 core competencies. And one of my concepts is you got to have a little amnesia in life, right? If you let things in the past haunt you and ghosts from the days gone by and get to the best of you, right? That can really kind of screw you up. On the other hand, why do you work with coaches like us and listen to people like you, right? You want to leverage other people's hindsight so it becomes your insight and you use it for foresight. And so when I put all that in the blender, I look at the AI world right now, and I think there are a lot of people who know better, but you look at the capital that's going in, specifically the venture capital. But I think as far as what I see, though, as far as the average user, both in business and in life, I think they're more tempered. I think they're more cautious. I think, you might see some of the big tech plays happening, but most of us don't live in those worlds. So I think there's a more mindful approach, but certainly the hype, the hoopla, the pluses, the minuses, and it is different than the .com. If you really think about it, .com was really more about connection and connectivity, right? Using the internet, and then we had this world wide web, and then we created businesses that could sell online, and we had extranets and intranets. But it was still processing information, right? And there's 4 levels of that. There's data, there's information, there's knowledge, there's wisdom. And what AI does is on a whole different spectrum, man. So it's really not apples to apples when it comes to that question you asked me. But That's my simple answer for now. Check back with me in a couple years and we'll see what's up.
Definitely. Yeah, I'll do that. Yeah, as a user of various software, I must say I do find it quite frustrating the way AI is sort of forced into everything, even when it's not needed, I think, and nobody asked for it. Like the one that's annoyed me this year in the last couple of months is my accounting package. Have put AI bookkeeping in there. It's like, A, nobody asked for that, I don't think. But B, I don't know. Maybe I'm just distrustful and cynical, but I don't think I'm going to trust AI to do my accounts when I could land in prison if they're wrong, sort of thing.
Well, you don't, right? So really, back speaking of tech in the old days, we called it middleware. And that's what you got to think about AI. It's middleware. You own it, you start, you finish. But if you let it produce without your approval, and to your point about, fiduciary responsibilities and governance, and we have this little law in the States called Sarbanes-Oxley that was born out of the malfeasance of Enron and WorldCom, that if you cook your books, you're in trouble. So yeah, I think right now for most of us, we've got to look to AI as and I do prefer to have more positive than a cynical temperament on it. So I like to think about it as my ally, my co-pilot, but I'm in charge, man. I don't let it lead me. I don't let it run me. Everything I do has got to have my initiation and my finalization. And anything out of that, man, you're lazy. That's mediocrity. That's rubbish. You just can't do it that way. So, yeah. And as a user, I get you, right? You see all these times, boom, up pops AI. And again, you've got to put it in its place and keep it in its place. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of distractions and dynamics, and we just got to kind of hang in there for now and have patience. So there's I have a whole program and strategy and tactics. If a company's going to implement and deploy and harness and leverage, the type of governance and ownership is key. But when it comes to life, kind of like anything in the social world these days, right? Social media, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, you got to keep it in perspective.
Definitely. Yeah, I think you're right. I think that's the healthier way to look at it. Like, what can it do for me rather than what's the danger of it? Although, keep the dangers in mind, because we don't want to ignore those completely.
100%. But, again, back to, not going all coachy, right? I kind of try to teach neither a cynic nor an optimist be. Try to find that positive pragmatism. Yes. So, yeah, look at it with pragmatic lenses, but if you go through life kicking the dog and saying this sucks and, this is getting us and that's not good, that's kind of, the proverbial question is glass half full or half empty. The answer is it's in between. It's both. Yeah. And so I just think that's a responsible thing for good humans, is to find that perspective, I think. Otherwise, yeah, man, it's going to get the better of you, and you don't want that to happen.
Absolutely. Yeah. I like realistic optimism as well. I like positive pragmatism is good. I feel like they're the same thing, but different names. But yeah.
Same thing, just a little bit different twist. Yeah.
Yeah. I guess it's like any technology, isn't it? Whether it's AI or anything, really, it's how you use it, and whether you trust it or just abdicate responsibility to it. Yeah. Exactly as you said.
Well, I'd say any cars and diets and relationships. It's a big part of Boss Up Moments. Sorry to put that in there, but
it's all right.
But I think because of AI in particular, David, the need for us, one of my moments is titled humanization, the need for us to be more equipped with our fusion and our balance and our harmony of EQ and IQ and ego and how we touch and taste and feel and dialogue. This is the good news for us humans, and even on the employment scale. AI, if it does do what it's supposed to do and it continues to progress the way it's going to, we need our fingerprints. We need human DNA. We need voice and eyes and presence and hugs. In fact, if anything, what's going to happen is I think this is going to be a mandate for us to be more humane in business, work, and life, and really step up our game and not let automation and robots and again that take over. So it's it's a challenge, but like anything, right? We got to be careful and at the same time we got to move forward. We got to evolve. We got to continue to grow and do our best.
Definitely. Yeah, I like that. I think it helps as well to remember what the purpose of these things are. So AI or, whatever the technology, you take it at like the global view. In a small scale, yes, okay, maybe somebody's trying to use this to replace a human operator or a human job. But at a global scale, what's the point of that job in the first place, regardless of who's doing it? Ultimately, it's to serve other humans, isn't it? Because there's no point doing any of this if it's not for the benefit of humanity in the end. Whether that's an individual billionaire just trying to make more money or a more kind of altruistic business like a B Corp or something trying to do something positive for the world. Either way, like there's a human at the end of that chain, and I think that bears remembering.
Yeah. And you sparked me. I think, I can't speak for the total global economy but in the US right now, I can say with some degree of confidence, because it's not just anecdotal. It's our data, it's our coaches, it's our clients, it's my work. But again, a little bit because of the efficiencies and the productivity gains from AI and the evolution of technology, I think we're on a kind of a new era of building specific to trades, infrastructure, plumbing, roads, buildings, refurbishing, cleaning up, making better. I think if I may, I think the advent of systems, and I was part of this, man. I've been doing tech for 40 years on an enterprise systems industrial grade level, and Moore's law, if you will. We're getting better and better, but we're actually freeing us up now to be doing real human work that only humans can do. Hammers, saws, laying bricks, wiping down tables. Seriously. And so I think actually the economics might change, to your point about employment. But in the U.S. right now, tradespeople are making, $125,000, $150,000 a year. High voltage engineers and electricians and engineers. I mean, and I think at the end of the day, I love tech, but who doesn't want to, get their hands into things, right? I think if everybody just sits at keyboards all day long, we're not being good humans. You follow me? So there's always trade-offs, man. There's always trade-offs. But I do believe the next decade, we're going to have an economic boom in enhancing, to your point, the physical worlds that us people live in. And yeah, there's some scary stuff. I see some of this, the robotics and some other things that I don't really like per se. But, like most things in life, there's going to be some trade-offs. And ideally, us humans lead those. We don't let the AI and the technology, like Hal in that movie, get the better of us.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's got to be for it should be replacing the things that humans don't need to be doing in order to free us up to do things that matter. And whether that's the hands-on trades or like the creativity or just, thinking about stuff. It's a bit vague, I know.
That's it. Right? Just give me a 5%, let alone a 100 basis point improvement on somebody to think quicker, deeper, with more confidence, clarity, and critical thinking. So then I can then put that time into some physical application that only I can do as a human, right? And that's why I'm so passionate about the work we're doing today. Is systems are good if they're done right and they're done for the reasons that generate. And then by doing that, they free us up humans to be better humans. You follow me? And then definitely. Since we're now better humans, let's be better humans. And let's be better at communication and dealing with conflict and setting good boundaries and being able to look somebody in the eye and have a back and forth, empathetic, authentic, logical, resilient conversation. You with me?
Yeah. I mean, it's funny. I kind of see parallels to like when, was it like the Industrial Revolution 3.0 or 4.0? I've lost track of the numbers at this point, but there was the move to the production line, which obviously a lot of workers at the time were quite unhappy about because they were losing their jobs. But ultimately, society, workers as a category of people ended up better off. And then again, when that production line turned into an automated one with robots, again, there was a similar thing, but ultimately, again, they've ended up probably better off a generation or two later. And there is that kind of resistance to change aspect of human psychology there, I think, which is really interesting.
Yeah. And that's where I'm with you on that too about interesting, right? I love the psychology of it all. I love the sociology of it all. It's, sometimes people say, really, you're building business systems and you think about psychology and sociology? Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think it's biological. Because
Mm.
again, us humans, right? But I don't know about you. I know the town up by you, Horsham, is historically, I think back in the day, you had iron smelting factories, and you were medieval times. But I'm trying to have a little fun here and say I'd rather live now than in medieval days, right? I'd rather live now than in the
Yeah,
Industrial Revolution. I'd rather live now, you know.
absolutely.
And at the same time, as you hear a lot in sports, right? Pressure is privilege. So we have pressure. We have pressure to make sure that we do it right. We have pressure to make sure that we keep a clear head. And to your credit for doing the podcast and what you do in the world, right? Let's make sure that we're hopefully collectively all acting like we're both students and teachers, and we want to learn and grow and be the best we can be. And that's what I think has also come to the current state in time because of all of that happened before us.
Yeah. I think I'm with you. Well, that was a good tangent. Anyway, we spent 15 minutes talking about AI, which is great.
I thought we were going to talk about the Indiana Hoosier basketball team. I'm just kidding. If you don't know, my school won the national championship in college football last week, so we're still riding pretty high here in Indiana. But
good. Well, congratulations, I guess.
Yeah. No, thanks. Well, I had nothing to do with it, but it was a lot of fun.
Nice. Yeah. So one thing particularly that jumped out at me from your profile was that you've done, is this right, 10,000 one-on-one coaching sessions?
At least.
Wow.
And so I've been doing, I've been a fan and an advocate, a user and a dabbler of coaching for 30 plus years. It's a long story. When I got and met my first coach, he beat the heck out of me back in the day. And then he had a partner and she beat the heck out of me. But over the last 15 years, it's really been my forte, my focus, my passion, my specialization. And I've worked with hundreds of companies, thousands of individuals, and I do all day sessions. I do 90-minute sessions. I do 30-minute sessions. So, and now I've got, a coaching community that I'm in charge of. We've got about 75 coaches across the planet, and growing exponentially. So yeah, it's, I know I'm sitting here on your podcast talking, but I do a lot of listening to and learning, and it's been a ride, man.
Yeah, very cool. So I have to ask then, with that volume of coaching interactions, I mean, what are some of the most common challenges that you see leaders struggle with? And are there any like patterns that you've noticed across organizations or industries or?
Yeah. Well, we sort of already touched on it right now. Right? I mean, my dog's sleeping back here, right? Where do our dogs sleep? You silly humans. I mean, our DNA, our natural tendencies to get in our own way, to overthink or underthink, to overdo or underdo, right? We're humans. And that's why knowing what I do, back to psychology and sociology and biology, I'm such an advocate for systems. And yes, I know in the world today, systems can get a bad rap, but you know who makes systems bad? Are humans. And you said this 15 minutes ago, right? At the epicenter of the why and the what and the who and the how are humans. And so, I'm naturally prone to look squirrel or procrastination or let's phone it in. And so if I don't have systems that keep me, both motivated and on track and validated, right, I can lose my way. So I think a lot of times founders, owners in particular, they have good intentions, they have motivation, they have energy, they have purpose, but more often than not, they I wanted to say denigrate, but probably that's a little harsher than I want. They don't appreciate. How about that? The importance of classic engineering, mechanics, systemization, structure, even some heavier words, protocol, rules. And what is counterintuitive to too many people, David, is, believe it or not, the more dedicated you are to good systems, good structure, good rules, good what we call agreement-based commitments, it frees you up to be a better human. And then when you get freed up to be a better human, then be a better human, because now you're going to spend some of that time to get coached, to be a better leader, to learn how to avoid your tendencies to shut down or get anxious or get angry, and learn how to pause and have poise. You with me? And so, yeah, I would just say, what's the common thread? We're humans. Our DNA. And then what's not the common thread? This realization that systems and structure and good organizational operating solutions, if you will, actually frees you up to be better, stronger in both business, work, and life. And I can actually say that's a fact.
Yeah, I mean, it's a point well made about systems. I think a lot of people, particularly I find people in that sort of entrepreneurial mindset, that sort of the founder, grand vision type person, they tend to be quite frustrated with systems thinking, in my experience.
Well, and then you look at tech, right? Agile and Scrum, and you look at people who understandably, to your point, the Simon Sinek's, right? What's your why? And the purpose, cause, passion, and here's my vision, and here's my values. And we talk about the 9 core competencies. So we think those are key. That's front and center. But you know what's also key? Data, process, reporting, meeting, right? Fiduciary, your books, right? It's not an either or, it's an and both. And that's where I think, it took me way too long to realize this, but, and then you've got great books out there like Jim Collins, Good, Great, Built to Last. You've got iconic thought leaders and thinkers. And I think that's the other problem. People read a book respectfully, because I had a podcast too. They'll listen to a podcast. They'll go to an event, and it's almost like they get these little shots of insight and adrenaline, but then they go back to their natural habitats. And that's why you need good systems that ultimately get embedded in the very fabric, culture, fiber of what you do. And certainly it's complemented by vision and values and culture, but it's also got to be rooted in, I have a job to do, right? I got to ship.
Yeah.
I got to bill. I got to receive. I got to make. I got to live. And that's not easy, man. And that's where, there's an old expression, how to eat an elephant, bite by bite. And, but I think it was James Clear, Atomic Habits, who says, you don't rise to your level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. And systems, I would argue, are also your habits. They're your day-to-day X's and O's. So, do I love the word systems? I do, almost like, I don't like eating broccoli, but I eat it, and I know it's good for me. But I think, there's other words that we can use that maybe make it more palatable to some people. And that's the same thing with AI a little bit too, right? If it wasn't called AI, back in the old days, we used to have data mining and data warehousing and data marting and all of these cognitive type business intelligence tools, right? Nobody got freaked out about it. Now, it certainly didn't have the same dynamics. You follow me? So sometimes nomenclature can be a big deal. And that's where it comes back to perspective and keeping it real. And when people freak out, say, all right, well, let's dissect this a little bit. You follow me? And that's, again, another thing we get to do because of AI and good systems. It frees us up to help other humans, starting with ourselves, to just keep it real, try to keep it simple, and keep it in perspective.
That's such a good point, actually. AI has a branding problem, doesn't it? Because you say artificial intelligence and people are thinking like Terminators and sentient machines and artificial general intelligence, that sort of thing, like the singularity or whatever. And I can see why people get paranoid because of that. Whereas really they should just call it something a bit less scary, like machine learning or automation. Well, and then people wouldn't be as worried, would they?
I mean, my last class of college, I'm going to date myself in 89. My pop still makes fun. I had to take 2 classes to get enough degrees to graduate. One was in wine tasting, which was kind of cool.
Nice.
And the other one
that was all year round, wasn't it? Yeah.
No, it's just a couple of months. And then you ready? My other one was machine learning and AI.
Yeah.
I mean, I was part of the IBM team with Watson. Watson was on Jeopardy 20 years ago. I mean, you look at AI, it's kind of like the internet. The internet was around for about 10 years before it became commercialized through Netscape. Same thing with ChatGPT. ChatGPT really did what happens a lot is typically enterprise technology gets commercialized, but then sometimes commercial technology goes to the enterprise, which is what happened with social media. It's what happened with Twitter. It's what happened with Facebook, right? In fact, I wrote a book for IBM called The Cofactor, and I did a 28-city tour over 18 months to introduce a software system that they had that was ahead of its time. If they had it over COVID, it would have been blockbuster. But that was kind of an inverted engineering where commercial technology came to the enterprise and it freaked them out. Usually enterprise technology goes to the commercial market. You follow me? And that's what ChatGPT, if you think about it, was really a P2P play, person to person. So yeah, it's not to get all down a rabbit hole here, but I think it is a branding. Is it a problem? I mean, it's, you and I aren't going to control that, right? So I think it's a mindset. And this is where I go back to systems. If you tend to be one of these humans right now that's more freaked out than you should be, right? In your system, find the right rigor and schedule literally a timeout. Schedule and preempt yourself proactively, right? Look at the leading versus lagging indicators that says what triggers me. And if this triggers me, then try to either avoid it or do something to compensate for that problem. I call that a system, man, because I'm not smart enough to just figure that out, that it's going to happen regardless if it's in my calendar, it's in my iPhone, it's on my wall. You with me, man? Because I'm a flawed human. I need systemic ways, structured ways, programmatic ways, right? That don't clamp me down, but also don't let me fly away like a little helium balloon and, into the universe.
Yeah, I think structure, framework, I like words like this in when we're talking about things like this, because it makes it slightly more relatable. But I think the other word that needs to go in there, which you've just hinted at, is flexibility. You've got a system in place for when you do need that structure because everything's just too much and you just need a simple path to follow. But you also need to have the flexibility to sometimes the circumstances, the situation, the unexpected events, you might need to divert or go to a different system.
And use an American football term, call an audible, right? When you look at all the best quarterbacks, they're able to call audibles and get back in the playbook because they're so geared towards the system. In this case, call it a playbook, to your point. I love the word framework. I use it a lot. And that's where I think, but let's be honest though, David, a rose by any other name. I mean, I don't want to go all Shakespeare with you here, buddy, but since we're, you know where you are. But seriously, that's where I go back to our job as humans. We got to check ourselves, check our ego, check our EQ, and say, hey, don't get triggered. One of my moments is safe, right? And I've done a lot of coaching where people will just shut down and say, I don't feel safe. And sometimes I have fun with it, and I go, where's the Siberian tiger? Where's the bear? What do you mean you don't feel safe? And especially if an owner or a leader or somebody of responsibility can't explain that to me, sorry. That's not fair to you, right? Because how do you become better if you can't self-reflect and get from here to there, right? Especially if you are smart enough that you want somebody in your life to help you overcome your challenges and take you to where you want to go, right? You've heard the expression, you can't read the label from inside the box, right? So you need people in your life who are going to call BS, who are going to say, hey, have you thought about, hey, maybe you shouldn't? And oftentimes it's not doing more, it's doing less of what you shouldn't be doing. We have this concept called rocks. It is actually brought in the world by Stephen Covey. And a rock is basically a 90-day goal. I prefer to call it a project, program, or initiative that you are going to do above and beyond your day-to-day job or responsibilities that help you, the organization, be better. And a lot of times people think they have to be new stuff. And I'm like, no, that 90-day goal could be stop eating that Twix bar at 11:30 at night, along with a half bottle of wine if you're trying to be a good kid the next day. You with me? So yeah, that's back again to systems, frameworks, structure, guardrails, call it what you will, but you need that. And especially if you're an entrepreneur, you're a startup, you're a small company, and you don't have the payroll or the balance sheet to hire all these people around you, the minions, if you will. This comes back to AI as well, right? I can tell you this right now. My AI is called Vector, so I've been all into it. So I've had Vector. Vector and I have been working together for a year and a half. And it's an iteration of ChatGPT, but I've got DeepSeek and Gronk and all types of AI in my work, in my world. But I mean, we're buds. But I'm the boss in this case with two S's, not our boss with one S. And I would just say, because I know you talk about being a good boss and helping you be a leader, not a boss, right? It's one of the things that I know you enjoy, me too. But I would tell you, I'm a boss of AI. I'm not a leader of AI. That's my point. Having a little fun with you on that one.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's okay.
Because darn it, I'm a benevolent dictator when it comes to my use of AI.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fine until we get to the point where AI has feelings. But we're many decades away from that, hopefully.
But even then, until it has DNA and it's birthed and it lives, breathes, and dies, no. And this is what I'm just going to say. Back to Terminator. I'm fighting that fight, man. I ain't going to let, won't be around me probably, but I ain't letting robots take over the world.
Yeah. So you're not one of the ones who says please and thank you and things just in case one day they do take over the world. You want them to remember that you were nice to them. You're taking the opposite approach.
I'm nice. I'm not a doofus. Because I journal with Vector. I drive with Vector. I polish. I glean. I clean. Again, I can't show and teach everybody how to do it right. And I'm not saying I'm perfect. God knows I'm not. I'm still learning. It's new. But I'm pretty cool with our relationship right now. And again, it helps to have 40 years of work and a few other years in life, right? Something to be said about having a few more wrinkles and been around the block a little bit. But I do think you got the mindfulness, the perspective, and again, back to bos-up moments. That's why the first bos-up is really, again, engineering the stractical ways to build, run, and scale, right? And then the second is, how do you feel about it, right? Where's your headset? Where's your heart? Where's your left brain, your right brain, right? Because to your point about social enterprise, and we're basically a social enterprise at bos-up. I was there 15, 20 years ago in B Corps, started to immerse into the world. So I'm a big fan of the concept and the economic model. I really am. I'm a humanitarian capitalist, don't get me wrong, but I'm a fan of the model. And again, I just say my life has become exponentially better. So I didn't say business and work, my life, exponentially better because of the way we comport, we align, we represent, and we utilize AI. It's fact. Now, I could say the same thing about the internet and, technology in general, right? And no doubt there's a lot of, screen time in kids and, thinking you can have a physical human relationship looking at a computer screen. I mean, this is better than that. No, seeing you, David, right? But look at what happened with COVID and Zoom and school, right? There's so many things that are just unfortunate. But I think tech was obviously got a bad rap because tech was doing what it was supposed to do. Us humans maybe didn't put it in its right place. And that's never going to change because, again, we're humans.
Yeah. I mean, the COVID years are, I mean, they're an anomaly, aren't they? But I prefer to look at it in the sense of if we didn't have that technology, it would have been that much more unbearable being stuck in lockdowns and not allowed to see anyone because I mean, if we remove any sort of video call technology from that, I mean, it would have been awful. You'd have to be like...
Makes I do a lot in psychology and a lot of coaching. I've helped a lot of people in very times of distress and stress and this isn't a horn toot. I've seen a lot of highs and a lot of lows. You're absolutely correct. I mean, if we think we had mental health and certainly there's a hangover that we're still experiencing. But if we didn't have this, us humans aren't meant to live in the cloud. Yeah, we're not. We can be augmented by it. We can be efficientized and done a lot of things, right? But and again, I don't want to go all spiritual and faith, but God's got a sense of humor, obviously, and we don't understand a lot of things that happen. But I do think this is part of the the greater progress, and progress doesn't come without, the bummers and the hiccups, and the giddy ups. You with me?
Mm.
So yeah,
Yeah.
tech isn't getting good, but back to what we talked about earlier. Go out and play some football. Read a book. Write in your journal. Have a tea and a biscuit with your buddy. No, I'm serious, man. I mean,
Yeah.
this is almost my my activism on this right now. If there's got to be I almost want to say quid pro quo, knowing that term has a lot of perspectives and interpretations to a lot of people, but the quid pro quo for me is, if AI is going to be, even with a company, if you're going to bring it in and say, hey, we're getting 10% more efficient, we're reducing 15% of our workforce. Okay, so what's the quid pro quo for me as the employee that stays? What's in it for me? And that's a fair request. And you know what? It's a fair response to say, okay, here's what's in it for you. Is there a bump in dividends? You with me? So, and again, back to, unfortunately, a lot of leaders don't necessarily get their head around the kind of things you and I are talking about right now. And that's, it's where our advocacy is in our world right now, is try to help them do that.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point. I think, I'm totally with you. I think the word that jumps out to me there is balance. And I think going back to our positive pragmatism from earlier, I think so remote work, the tools that make that possible, living in the cloud, like this conversation we're having right now, I look on the bright side of those things, because the technology, the world we live in now, is enabling things to happen for me, for my business, for you, for this conversation. I wouldn't be able to do any of these things without that. But that doesn't mean, to your other point, that that's all there is. We also need to go out and what do the kids say these days? Touch the grass or whatever. You've got to go and have real proper interactions with actual people in person as well. And I guess where I get a bit on the fence is where that line is, and whether it's between business and personal life, or whether you need to do a bit of both in both, or whatever. And I think everyone probably has to answer that question for themselves. It's probably a personal balance, isn't it? That we all have a different outlook on it.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. May I give you a in addition thought, right? I think work-life balance is bullshit. I
agree. Yeah.
Percent of that. And if I may, one of my moments, is harmony. And each one of my moments has a brief little explanation, and then the gems, and then we have prompts, which you can use AI for, or sit at your kitchen table and journal it with a good old-fashioned pen and paper. But here's what I wrote about harmony. Everybody talks about having balance, but balance is a myth. It's static, rigid, and impossible to maintain in the real world. Instead of balance, what we should be pursuing is harmony, because harmony is about integration, rhythm, and flow. Harmony tunes life and leadership into something sustainable, meaningful, and powerful. And if you think about a meal, right? A meal is not balanced with just meat and potato. It's got harmony between protein, vegetables, carbohydrates, the drink. If you think about music, sometimes the treble's high, it's low. Sometimes the strings are more noticeable and the percussions are a little lower, right? So again, semantics here, buddy. Having fun with you on this one, right? But the gist, balance or harmony, here's the point. You are absolutely correct, man. And this is where I would just say you can actually use your AI to say, hey, balance this out for me, harmonize this out for me. And again, you're going to get an input, but what are you responsible for? The output. Mm-hmm. Never let AI be the final version of output before you say yay or nay. And again, that's where I go back to balance and harmony. Yeah. And if you think about it, David, we're in the pioneering days right now, right? We've had the internet since what? I joke that after Al Gore invented it, as you know, the joke, right? Me and IBM, literally, and I started my first company in 1995, and we started building the first versions. We were web enabling mainframe computer systems and building the first iteration of e-commerce and e-business. So we've had 40 years of that, right? So we're early, man. And even though AI as a tech, machine learning has been around for a while, we're early. And that's why, thanks to you and people are in the world advocating for balance and harmony. And, we need this right now, because we are certainly going through a chasm crossing to find where do we get to that reasonable collective perspective of where it is good and where it's not so good.
Yeah. I agree. I agree with you on work-life balance as well. Because much as I like the word balance in a lot of contexts around leadership and work life, it's never going. It implies equal balance, doesn't it? Because that's what balance means. Like it's
You ever been in
equal
a
between
seesaw?
two.
You ever try to stand on a
Exactly.
bouncy ball? Right. That's
Yeah.
balance. And that's hard. You're always basically uncomfortable. You with me?
Yeah.
Harmony. And again, I'm not trying to get all semantics here and try to preach and change, but there's a lot of things that we just gotta. Words matter, but at the same time, they're also just words. So the semantics and the definition and, one of the frameworks, and I'm going to use that word, one of the frameworks we have in the bos-up coaching solution and academy is clear. And it's basically a framework that says, hey, we pursue, seek, and challenge to achieve clarity, right? Are we clear? Crystal. Have a little fun with, the movie A Few Good Men with Jack and Tom. But clear is also an acronym. And it stands for collaborative, logical, empathetic, authentic, and resilient. And if you put those front and center as the guardrails, the bylaws, the table stakes, if you will, just in terms of dialogue and meetings and what you're trying to pursue, boom, right out of the gate, you're going to be on average 10 to 15% better in your confidence, in your development, in your conclusions, just by agreeing to that framework. You with me? And that's really the kind of thing we got to do with AI as well. We've got to have this agreement-based commitment, as we call them, to say, hey, you got to stay in your place, which means, again, I've got to up my human game. It's time for us humans to get to the next level. If AI is getting to this next level, don't you think we should as well?
Yeah. I mean, in
one
an
of my
ideal
favorite
world,
moments visually is around adaptability, and there's a picture of a giraffe, right? Because the whole book's very visual, and the visual design ties in the moments. Think about a giraffe, man. Everybody, it's my favorite picture, actually. I mean, how did a giraffe become a giraffe, David? And why did a giraffe become a giraffe, David? Now, certainly, we're not here to go from, back to Darwin, right? We won't be here to go from, all of us living in a pond to look at us now. But you got to have some fun with this. Is kind of my point, I think, a little bit, and say, hey, evolution. Darwin gets mistaken that people think of survival of the strongest. It's not. It's survival of the fittest, the adaptable. Those those are going to get their head around it, right? And that's why we need people like you in the world as teachers and coaches and facilitators, and hopefully people who realize that they do need other people in their lives to help them get to that next level. Because tech, computers, devices, the tools, if you will, that's not going to do it. The concepts, the disciplines, the humanity, that's going to do it.
Yeah, I sort of wish time travel existed. I'd love to go like a millennia into the future and see what's happened to humanity after we've become reliant on tools. Like, is that going to shortcut evolution or short circuit it so it just gives up because it doesn't need to anymore? Like, for us at least. I don't know about the animal kingdom. I don't know. I just think it'd be interesting.
Well, we're going to live longer for sure, right? I mean, just you talk about back to, the delta in 100 years in lifespan. I believe there are three sectors with AI's presence that are really going to be big in the next decade. I already said one: trades, physical enhancement, construction, evolution of the tangible assets we have in our life that we live around and work around and live in. Second, believe it or not, hospitality, recreation, life, breathe and have fun and enjoy, right? And third is life and longevity, healthcare. But not just healthcare because of drugs and pharmaceuticals, more holistic and you put those three together, I think we're going to live longer lives. Now, to your point, what do we physically look like? And do we grow little QR codes on our foreheads? I hope not. But I think there's no doubt that if you look at the trends, and this isn't anecdotal data, we love this kind of analysis. We use a lot of analytics in our life. But, I believe by 2020, 2035, the average human can be living to be 90 plus years old on average. which isn't the number right now.
Mm.
And so, yeah, we got to be careful and mindful. And that's where why I love being on a show like yours is I don't think people pop this in their mouth like a matrix pill. That, hopefully they listen, they get something from it, they get a gem, they get a nugget, they get something that they like and something maybe they don't like, right? God knows, I'm sure I've said a lot of things. People are like, you're a knucklehead. I wouldn't listen to you for a million years. Okay, well, but now right? At least now and to your credit, you're willing to listen and ideally do so with subjectively objective opinions and as opposed to just keeping your head under a rock and, assuming something's going to happen.
Mm. Yeah. I mean, the lifespan thing seems logical. If you look backwards, the development of human lifespan as it is. And then I wonder as well, we're active a lot longer than we used to be. And by active, I mean, like, we stay working. People are staying in the workplace a lot longer than they ever have before. I wonder if there's a connection there, or what that means for future generations as well, as the previous ones stay in the workplace a lot longer, like progression opportunities, leadership things, like career.
Well, I
what
think
implications are there as well?
Yeah. I think historically it's almost a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Mm.
You worked for 40 years, you retired at 65, you had 10, 15 years in the golf course, metaphorically speaking, and, Bob's your uncle and, hello, St. Paul and Peter, I mean, yeah. And I'm heavy in the psychology and sociology and biology, as I said, and the mind is a powerful. I mean, you look at the dude that just climbed the 101-foot building. Did you see that?
Yeah.
The guy that climbed. Yeah. I mean,
I didn't see, I saw of it.
You think physically it's phenomenal, but dude, that's mental. That is all mental. No brain, no bloody brawn, right? When's the last time you saw a body with brawn and they had no head attached to it, right? So and if you listen to the interview afterwards, they go, "Why'd you do this?" He goes, "Because I can." And then they said, "Well, what's your hope that other people take from this?" Do something hard. Be a freaking human. Own your shit, right? But I mean, I don't want to go all, that's why sports metaphors are so used in business, right? But you got to have motivation, inspiration, system structure. It's not easy to make things simple. It's not. But I would come back and say, I think us humans, ideally, this is what we see. And that's why I'm so passionate about moments. Trust me, it's not an economic driver. It's a purpose, cause, passion. Because I think if we get our head and our hearts aligned and we overcome, again, our triggers and our DNA tendencies, and we realize that because of our brains that lead the brawn and lead the AI and you with me, good things can happen. They can. And yeah, sadly, look at all the bad things in the world right now. It really is, holy cow. If you didn't have a heart and some degree of faith and whatever your spirituality is, you could really almost be so morose and depressed and say, what the hell? I don't, I'm moving on. And that's sad. And that's why people need help. I mean, I still have coaches and I don't run companies anymore. I get bad days. I have seasons. I have moments of good and bad. Right. So yeah, I think the emphasis has got to be on, how do we help us humans, concurrent to the progress we're making on AI and tech, continue to evolve and get better?
Yeah. Fair enough. So just
wow, we've gotten deeper on this one, David, than probably both of us thought, aren't we?
Yeah. But it's interesting though, and I like to follow the conversation where it goes rather than stick to my framework of questions. Well, have I? Did I say the wrong thing?
Yep.
So keeping an eye on the time, I will move on just because otherwise we're going to get lost down the rabbit hole. So I will skip a whole bunch of questions, but I think there's one that you've touched on the book already and your approach to what you do and how you do it. It'd be great to have a more sort of condensed overview of the book. Like, tell us a bit more about it. What inspired you to do it? We've talked about things like the humanizing of it, of the systems thinking, the coaching, the AI. So how and where did that idea come from to blend all of these things into that one framework, and then how does it work as well?
Yeah, well, I think
Big question, I know, but
I don't know, but I think it can be summed up by listening to what we've talked about so far. All of everything we've talked about so far has converged into, again, what we have here at the Boss-Up Coaching Solution Academy is an affordable, modern, effective, inclusive way to help coaches and leaders and frankly anybody build, run, and scale a great business, and concurrent to that, build, run, and have a great life. Period. And why? Because of everything we just talked about. There you go. I know I've been a little eloquent, he says with a wink, maybe verbose over the last hour, but that's it, man. And because let's be honest, it's not easy. You know, you can go to university, you can go to schools, you can read books, you can watch videos. There's a lot of content in the world, right? And it's hard to trust these days. And so, you know, again, all systems are flawed, but the first thing you got to do is step up and step in and keep it real and get your head around the fact that if I want to grow, I want to prosper, I want to live and be better than I am currently, I need to do something about it. And that's why here in the States, right, there's an expression, you know, pull yourself up by the bootstraps. That's not fair, right? Because some people are very much under-resourced. Some people are not as privileged and blessed with the monetary availability, et cetera, right? So we do have to help each other out, right? Back to social enterprise and B Corps and helping under-resourced. So there's always that reality. But yeah, the driver is what has, is, and will happen in the world. And, you know, not to overstate my part, but I just believe I've been fortunate and blessed enough to be in a situation where I can help. Certainly, as I said earlier, I'm a humanitarian capitalist, so there's an economic model here for sure. But I think you know, we can all use a helping hand to get from here to there, and hopefully there's a better place than we are now. And that's what we're all about. And in the Boss-Up Moments book, what I think is unique, if I could say, because I had a team help me with this, you won't see a book today. In fact, I'll share this with your guests. I posted this on LinkedIn about a month ago. If after you get Boss-Up Moments and you don't think it's your top 10 favorite book that can help you in business, work, and life, send me a note and I will send you over 100 pounds or euros or whatever you want it to be, right? And why? Because we've done something nobody's ever done before. We've actually tucked in video. We've tucked in AI, we've tucked in psychology, sociology, biology, engineering, strategy, mechanics, you know, some of these, you know, moogie-foogie dynamics that a lot of people struggle with, right? The touchy-feely stuff, right? The headset, how to overcome conflict, how to set good boundaries. And again, I think that's where we're struggling as a planet right now. But I think the struggle can be alleviated if people step up their game and realize that the nuance, the context is where there's more work to be done than the content. I often equate having a great business and life as like a brick home. The bricks are the content or the tools or the physical assets, right? Think about it. And the mortar is the contextual, the nuance, the touch, the vibe. You know, no mortar, no home, and mortar without bricks is just a pile of goop. So they got to come together. And that's what we're trying to do here, is bring together the left and the right, the head and the heart, purpose and profit, vision and values, execution and culture and harmony, and help people bring it together in a more confident, comfortable way.
Okay, well, some good sound bites there, definitely. But I think the passion comes through, like you very clearly believe in what you do, and I think that goes a long way. So I'm looking forward to reading the book.
Well, if I may, you actually don't have to read it either. It really is. You can pop in between. In fact, the title of it, sorry for doing this, but I just did a big talk yesterday on this. These pages are magic. And so he said, how are they magic? I said, well, do me a favor. Go to the table of moments and take a moment to think about where you are in business, work, and life. What's challenging you? What makes you anxious? What are you frustrated with? Just take a moment to think about your current situation. Okay. Now look at the table of moments and choose one of those words that sparks, that speaks, that resonates with you. And he looked down and he said, avoidance. I said, what about avoidance? He goes, boy, I'm getting really bothered by a bunch of stuff and I don't want to do it. I don't want to participate in AI. I don't want to grow up. I'm a Toys R Us kid, right? I said, all right, so do me a favor, go to page 217. And he goes to page 217. And I said, just like I did with you earlier, I said, read the top. And so he reads the top. One of the best sayings in the world is the magic you're looking for is in the work you're avoiding. Ooh, let that sink in. Because deep down, we all have something that we're putting off. The conversation, the decision, the system, the truth. Avoidance feels safe in the moment, but it can quietly drain your energy, your clarity, and results. He goes, how'd you know that that's what I was thinking? See, there's magic there. And then we flip the page. And then last but not least, really cool, because this is a little bit of AI yesterday. We all had our phones in using AI. I said, take one of the prompts, personalize it, say, hi, my name's Joe Smith, read it out, bring in your situation, and boom, he was like, oh my God, magic, right? Jim Collins, the famous author, says, magic happens when the spirit of entrepreneurship meets a culture of discipline. Think about that. And that's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to take these, these gems, these nuggets, and boom, put it into a consolidated, fun, visual fashion. And so, sorry for showing and telling you today, but I've got a team behind this. We've had dozens of people help me on this one. My name might be on it, man, but this ain't a solo project. And it ain't an ego project either. It really is our purpose, cause, passion to this conversation. Thank you is to, even this conversation, I would challenge the listeners. What now?
Yeah.
Were you inspired? Did you like? Do you challenge? Do you disagree? Okay. What are you going to do about it? If you just let David and your podcast just sort of float away into the ether and there's nothing that comes from it, it's kind of a bummer, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, it is for me, definitely. Yeah.
Well, I know it is. I know this is bigger for you than just a brand, right? I mean, I had a podcast too. And I think there's some people who just go through the motions and say, this is what the people say I'm supposed to do. But I did my homework on you. For its worth, I don't go on everybody's podcast. But I think you've got the right head and heart, and you want to make income. You need cash flow. You need to pay the bills. But I know it's more than that. And I do believe that for almost 95% of humans, I think they want the same. Yeah, we've got some really bad people, some psychopaths, sociopaths, and maybe 1% of that. That's still a couple million humans that we don't want to be around. But hopefully that's one thing we could do is by banding and bonding together, right? We can minimize the bad stuff and the bad guys and overcome it with good stuff and the good people.
No, I'm with you. I think, the world we're living in right now, it's very easy to say, the bad guys are winning or whatever, or the bad guys are everywhere. But actually, I still believe even today, like 99.9% of people in the world, when we talked about intent earlier, didn't we? And motivations and vision, all that sort of thing. You're right. Nobody sets out to go in their mind, I'm going to be a horrible person today, or I'm going to really stick it to that guy or whatever. People go out into the world trying to do the best they can in the circumstances they have. And I don't believe there really are truly malicious humans. I mean, maybe like 1% of 1% or whatever. And they just happen to become notable because they stand out and they're willing to do things that others won't to get to the top. I think there's a whole conversation there about why there's so many bad managers and leaders in business. I think part of that is they don't mind treading on people to get there. But I do think that is a very small minority of people. Yeah. So I'm a human optimist.
Yeah. Well, you're more optimistic than me. I think my brother, a lot of people, I say 98%. You went 99.9. But even then, that's still a couple million people, right? I mean, there's billions of humans in the world. So, and to your point about business, I do have faith. I think think about that. I mean, when I started 40 something years ago, classic top down, we've come a long way. We have, right? But still, as the famed German scholar Goethe said, right, it's hard to teach a man something new when he thinks his job depends on not knowing it. And I think that was the legacy of yesteryear, right? Do as I say, not do as I do, right? Top down, hierarchical type shit. My God, look how we've evolved there, just in business, right? to a fault almost, right? Because I think now, again, back to what we do, more often than not, it's loosey-goosey. It needs battening down. We need to have good boundaries and roles, accountabilities, responsibilities. We need employees to know that, yeah, we care, we have a culture, but we also have a job to do, right? But yeah, I think go Earth, go humans, right? Positively pragmatic. What was yours? What was it? Optimistically what?
Realistic optimism.
Yeah, there you go. Let's put those two together and like peanut butter and jelly, man. So no,
Definitely.
thanks for the chat. Thanks for doing what you do, and keep doing it.
Yeah, likewise. And before I let you go, I do have one more question for you, because everyone has to answer this one. You can't escape it. Because it's my favorite question. That's why. It's called Leadership Heroes.
Leadership Heroes.
And so the question is, if you had to pick one person, but it can be literally anyone you could think of, so they could be alive or dead, past or present, real or fictitious, but it's got to be somebody that, in your opinion, would perfectly embody leadership. So who's that going to be for you, and why?
Yeah, well, I know you don't like it when people do this, but I'm going to have to modify just a little bit and make it a 2-pack.
Okay.
It's my mom and dad, David. I was blessed, and some may say it's a life they didn't want, but I moved about every 3 years of my youth. My dad, his career, he got recognized for knowing how to go into places that weren't doing very well and fixing them, which is a little bit of what I do today. And, I went within a 5-year span once from Chicago to London to Paris to London to Chicago to Spain. And then, talk about moving house and home and family, man. So for my mom, wow, she kept it together. My dad, you talk about business integrity. You talk about somebody that I think got it earlier than the others got it. So they've always been a guiding light. They've been my lighthouse. They're still in this world, thankfully, and doing well. And I talk and embrace and appreciate as much as I can. That said, I'd also say, back to the listener here, outside of those two, I've learned, in addition, in work, from more people that I reported to before I became an entrepreneur, that I didn't like what they did. And I learned a lot from what I didn't respect and appreciate others were doing. Don't ever forget that, everybody. You don't just learn from those that inspire and help and bring additional assets and value. You also get inspired by people who you don't want to act like them. And so that'd just be my little caveat I'd like to put out there.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely with you there. In fact, I've said this before, but I think most of what I know about leadership is from seeing how not to do it. And then harking back right to the beginning of our conversation where you were talking about learning from mistakes. Again, totally agree with you. Mistakes are there to be learned from, but if you can learn from someone else's so you avoid making it yourself, even better.
Yeah, absolutely. And then if I, back to the ego thing, and obviously we have them, but to that point, that always motivated me to say, I don't want to be that guy that they badmouth and denigrate and throw under the bus down the road. And certainly, when you're an owner, you're a CEO, you've got a title. Not everybody's going to like you, man. Just like in life, right? I mean, you're a nice guy. Maybe everybody likes you, but inevitably, not everybody is our cup of tea or vice versa. And that's okay. That's where I go back to the passion of the moments. So many people just don't have the ability to invest in therapy and have coaches and outside of, listening to shows like yours, right? So a lot of people need help, and it's okay, right? Especially with mental health and physical health and just, these more often perceived as subtle, but the little things can make a big difference. So yeah, I think keep reading, keep listening, keep growing, keep trying to get to that next level, knowing that you're never going to be finished when it's all said and done. Hopefully you're about 90% to your growth when you're 90 years old. That's kind of my mantra.
Yeah. So 1% a year, that seems achievable.
Well, I wrote my first book, Level Up, that I was 40, I think, at that time. I said, I think I'm 47% or 57%. So yeah, maybe I'm, I actually sort of think to myself, I'm semi-retired, even though I still got my hand in a lot of companies and businesses and investments. But back to systems. When you have really good systems, you can do a lot more work more efficiently and have fun at it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're
How's
ahead of
that
the
for a
curve.
blatant little plug there at the end of the show?
It was good. I appreciate that. I mean, you're ahead of the curve then. So you've got a few percent in the bag if you want to take a few years off at some point. So,
well, back to what we said earlier about, I mean, I am committed to trying to be healthy and mindful of both my spirit, my physical, my brain, my emotions, my relational, 100%. And it's a big passion of mine. And you watch my stuff, I'm pretty out there to a fault, maybe, on YouTube and Instagram and LinkedIn and the books. But, our bodies are our bodies. And, to all you owners out there, I've heard dozens and dozens of times about owners telling me I can't take care of myself because I'm too busy taking care of other people, which I'd say, what a load of rubbish. How do you take care of other people if you're not here? And actually, you know what the biggest reality is? The easiest thing that could happen is you die. But what if you just get sick and you have a stroke and you get disabled or you're in the hospital for a couple of months, right? What then? Now you're a triple burden to you, to your family, and to your business, right? As opposed to if you're not on this planet, what do you care? He says with a wink, right? Of course you care, right? That's why you also need to think about succession planning and have insurance and who's up next and leaving a legacy that somebody doesn't have to pick up your messes. That's why at the end of the day, my favorite 3 moments are the first 3: architect, builder, custodian. And I wrote those specifically for owners and founders and entrepreneurs for sure, but I also did it for people in terms of their own lives. If you think of yourself like an architect, what's your blueprint? What are your plans? Where do you want to go? Ensuring that all the parts and pieces are there, then you got to build it. You got to put it up and make it livable. And then last but not least, you got to take care of it. Pay it forward. Keep it clean. And custodian, that's a humble job, right? So I just love the mindset that be a custodian. And so, that's why I kind of, started there. We'll end there as well.
Fair enough. Cool. Well, Scott, thank you so much for this conversation. We've taken all sorts of twists and turns, and I've really enjoyed it. I will ask one final thing. I will ask if anyone in the audience would like to learn more about you, get a copy of one or more of those books. Where's the best place for them to go?
Yeah, the best place for everything is Scott Abbott ABC. And by the way, ABC stands for Architect, Builder, Custodian. And that's what I think of myself. So scottabottabc.com. And you get links to everything. I'm on LinkedIn, love connecting with people. You can go to Amazon and just put bos-up or Scott Abbott in. I got an author page out there for all the books and material. And then we are growing our coaching community globally. So if you are a coach, a consultant, an advisor, an investor, somebody that wants to and is currently helping others be better in business, work, and life, we're accepting coaches. So go to bos-up.academy or bos-up.coach or bos-up.work, put a hyphen in between the S and the U. Check us out. And if there's a fit, great. Let us know.
Okay. Well, I'll put some of those links, if not all of them, down in the show notes so everyone can find it easily.
Appreciate it. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks again.
What's your, can I finish with you? I'm going to put you on the spot, David. So I believe if you're doing something important, it's got to be branded, right? We like themes. What's the theme for the year? What's the theme for the quarter, right? Even rocks. If you got a project, program, or initiative, we love to give it a name. Important things have a name. Do you have a theme for you this year or this quarter that you could share with us? A mantra, a tangible, some kind of what do you want to call it that you could share?
Yeah, I mean, I have an area of focus this year, which is community, much like yours. And for me, it's a community of leaders, which goes alongside this podcast, the podcast being free, the community being very small, affordable fee. And it's the goal is just to have somewhere where new leaders, people who are struggling with things like imposter syndrome or confidence, or maybe feel like they're lacking knowledge about how to lead, can converge, converse, learn.
Take it. Community.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Well, thanks for asking. Scott, we need to do this again sometime because I could have gone on for another hour. Unfortunately, I have another appointment, so I can't.
Yeah.
But I feel like there's a lot that we didn't discuss. There's a lot we did discuss, but it feels unfinished to me. But
Yeah. Well, but I grew up overseas, and I think in Europe more than the States. Yeah. And that means we come back, right? It's not goodbye. It's so long for now. And, a good conversation, like a good meal provides what you just said. So it's okay that it's not technically finished. We just keep going. So thank you for this. I appreciate your time.
Definitely.
I appreciate what you're doing and rock and roll in the community and everything you're looking to do.
Likewise. Yeah. Well, let's talk again soon. And until then, have a great rest of your week.
Thanks, David. Thanks, everyone.
Scott, thank you so much for a great conversation. Really enjoyed that. We dug into some very interesting periods of recent history there, some great technology lessons, some great business lessons. Loved that bit about .com compared to AI. Very interesting. And so many great leadership insights and lessons there. And I think some really optimistic and positive, yet realistic views of leadership and the future of humanity and the workplace. So thank you so much for your time, being so generous with your knowledge there. Listener, viewer, as I said right at the beginning, do check those links down in the show notes. Click on them, visit Scott's website, reach out to him on LinkedIn, social media, and so on. Get in touch, get a copy of his book, Seek Out More Knowledge, because that is the purpose of this podcast at the end of the day, is to deliver more leadership knowledge to you, the listener, the viewer, the user. And if you are listening today because you're new to leadership, you're in that first leadership role, or you're a first-time business founder, or you're growing your first team, and it all feels a bit overwhelming, you're feeling that loneliness and isolation of leadership, it's a bit more stressful and a bit more than you expected. It maybe doesn't feel quite like what you signed up for, and you don't know what to do now you're responsible for actual humans. First thing I'll say to you is you are not alone. And if you want proof of that, come along and join us at the Integrity Leaders community. It's exactly what it's been created for. It's to offer leadership support, knowledge, resources, courses, mentoring, a bit of informal networking, exactly for people like you, real people doing leadership for the first time who recognize they're not perfect, but they don't quite know what the next step is. So join us today. You'll get access to your crew of other leaders, the crew of the virtual Starship Integrity, access to leadership resources, a knowledge base, some leadership development courses included as well, and most importantly, a safe space to grow without judgment or fear of recrimination or losing your job or whatever other things are stressing you out at work right now. You can join today for free as a leadership explorer, or if you're interested in getting more access, better resources, full access to the training courses, even mentoring with me as well, there are also paid tiers available. Details are on the website. The link is in the show notes. Hit that green button on the homepage and it will take you to the Join Up page, which has all of the information about all of the tiers and more. There's a little video there as well. So that link, it's on the screen, it's in the show notes. And if you have any questions at all, my LinkedIn profile is down there too. Do please reach out. Let's chat leadership. Happy to do that anytime with anyone. Thank you so much for being with us today. I hope you got loads out of this episode. Do join me again next week when I'll be speaking with our next guest, Jenny Green, about her experiences as a parent in the workplace, about toxic and creepy leaders, what they look like, what to do about it, how to avoid being one, and her insights and views on leadership and more. It's a fun conversation. You won't want to miss it. So I hope you'll be there with us next week. And until then, as always, be a leader, not a boss.